Sitting round the fire, playing games with my sweet. She plays out marshmallow, gosh, that's hard to beat. Oh, how I desire to toast that hollow man, but it keeps on going back to her hand.
Come on now, let's play some more Kana.
We'll smash some s'mores like Hans and Princess Anna. We'll
Lick a Mickey bar to his friendly face, invites you through a smorgasbord of lore. It's S'more Kana.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to S'more Kana. I'm Brett.
And I'm Katie.
And we are here to use all of our snack-fueled brain cells to power through some Lorcana strategy conversations today.
Yes, we are the world's only and the world's best Disney snack Lorcana mashup podcast.
I don't think we're ever going to stop making that joke.
Well, it's not even a joke anymore. It's just the truth.
Facts. Straight spitting facts. You know what else is true?
What?
We kind of blew up on Twitter a little bit for a hot second.
We're a meme.
It was kind of cool. We made a meme.
Yep.
Because we realized that the word wheel is embedded in the text A Whole New World.
Right. And we realized this because we were watching people play on stream, and a lot of times they would just say wheel instead of A Whole New World.
Right. Colloquially, it's become wheel because Magic players have so infused Lorcana, which is cool. And A Whole New World has the exact same text as the Magic card called Wheel of Fortune.
Right. And if you take some of the letters in A Whole New World, it spells wheel.
And apparently folks hadn't really realized this. And so when we posted a meme like highlighting those letters, it got shared like a ton, and like it was kind of wild.
Amazing.
Yeah, so hopefully we get some new listeners from that weird little lexical observation.
Yeah, some meme fans.
Yeah, we're going to be known for snacks and memes now.
We're going to have to make some more memes.
And we will. I mean, we do some like fun Instagram stuff. Like you've been all over that. So.
Oh yeah, we love a good reel.
Yeah, so hop on Instagram and follow us there if you aren't already.
Yeah, check us out on the gram, yo.
It's mostly about Chief Tui and or airfoil.
It's not our fault. We have 892 Chief Tuis.
We have pretty much all of them. I mean,
Yes.
if you look in your collection, we probably have your Chief Tui somehow.
You won't even know. He'll just be gone one day. We
And
have him.
He'll be picking up rocks.
He is ours. What do we have on the menu today, Brett?
Well, for the appetizer course, we're going to talk about the metagame a little bit in the context of tournament play. I was fortunate to go to a cash tournament this weekend and make the cut, which was pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to talking about that for our appetizer.
Very cool. We've got a little bet you didn't know about Diz.
Yeah, you're going to tell us all about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The very first Disney Studios animated feature film? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth. We're going to talk all about it. We're going to deep dive right into it. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Continuing on with the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs theme for our dessert course, we're going to talk about synergy in deck building, looking at the Seven Dwarfs cards as our examples. A little bit of an expansion on one of our earlier deck building episodes.
Yes.
And of course, maybe grab a mint on the way out in the form of a new dream card.
Ooh, how refreshing.
And spoiler alert, it'll probably have to do with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
What? No way. The theme of the day?
Yeah, so much to get into with set championships on the horizon.
There's so much happening right now in the world of Lorcana.
Before we get into our feast, you are registered for 2 set championships.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I was at work in a meeting, and Brett was on fire trying to get us into these set championships because Brett, as we have mentioned before, unfortunately cannot go to this first round.
Yes, I will be performing in a production of the Scottish play on the exact weekends of set championships, so I don't believe I'll be able to attend any, although there was rumors of one store in New England that might be holding one on a Monday night, and I would love a chance at a stitch of my own, even just one shot. Give me one shot.
Yeah, so it's gonna be so fun. I'm going to one in Somersworth and in South Portland. So
yeah,
so 2 different states here for us to get a little info about the meta, about the scenes out there. So I'm excited to report back about that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to start training for it.
Yeah. And you almost didn't get a ticket, I have to say.
I know.
You know, it was pretty wild. I mean, especially after last week, we were chatting a little bit about how it was really difficult to get tickets for the challenge events in Atlanta and Lille. The tickets for our LGS set championship sold out also in under 20 seconds. I mean, it was pretty much instantaneous. I was refreshing the page at 9:59.
Insane.
And I never had a chance to get one. You got in off of the wait list after I messaged the store and was like, whoa, what happened? And they, you know, I think they added like 2 seats.
Sure, yeah.
Just because they knew that, like, you know,
they were going to have a wait list.
Yeah, and we've been supporting the store. Like, that's our local store. That's the one we go to. That's the one we play at the most often. And so it was cool of them to be like, all right, we're going to shove you in here because you've been supporting the store.
Yeah, and that's where we want to play the set championships.
Yeah,
you know? Like, that's where we want to hang out. That's where we want to buy packs after and stuff. And,
totally.
You know, it's really nice. I'm really excited for it. I can't wait.
Yeah, so we'll be training.
Woo! Insert Hercules training montage here.
Should we jump right into our appetizer course?
Yeah, let's do it. Coming from the table across me.
Oh my goodness.
We have Brett, who made the top 8.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. So like right before we started this segment, Katie was like, I'll start. And then like, you know, usually we give it a little beat of air just so it's easy to like cut into the segment. And then all of a sudden that started happening.
I can't help it. I'm sorry. It's just the music that came on in this room. Listeners, if you could see it, lights started flashing. There was smoke everywhere. And all of a sudden, Brett emerged from the other side of the table from me. So unfortunately, yesterday, I could not go to this 2K event. But Brett represented our podcast and our family very well. Brett, how was it in a nutshell? How was your time?
Well, I mean, you know, it was a local event, cash event. I made top 8. It's not like I don't know if it's worthy of the fanfare, but it was still really, really fun.
It is. It was awesome. So how long had it been since you'd been to a big event like this?
Yeah. So for a little context, the last time that I had been in an event with like any kind of significant prizing was the 2019 Game of Thrones Continentals.
Dang.
Where I made top cut in both events, in the melee and the joust. So that was one of my best performances to make the cut in both events then. And then, you know, the pandemic kind of killed that game.
Right.
And so, you know, I was used to traveling and competing for Thrones, and the pandemic turned that part of my card gaming abilities off for quite a while. We played Hearthstone a bunch over the pandemic, and Game of Thrones kind of withered and died. And so the Lorcana has resurrected that passion in me for these competitive events. It was really cool to get back into an event that had a little bit of a buzz and get some of those competitive juices flowing again. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, just so fun to, like, you know, pack a backpack and drive somewhere and lay out your deck and meet other people. And I know you were all fired up about how many great people you met at this event too.
Yeah. Everybody was super nice. I had so many great conversations over the course of the day. I met everybody I met was great, you know, and I was definitely nervous going into the day. Just I had those like butterflies of nerves just because I didn't expect to know anybody really.
Right.
Luckily, our friend Jimmy, shout out to Jimmy, who's
Number
a
one
great
fan.
supporter of the podcast. Jimmy was going. And so it was great to see him there. That was a comfort for sure to be able to sit and chat with him in the banquet hall beforehand. So yeah, shout out to Jimmy. But you know, by the end of the day, I was, you know, saying bye to a dozen people that I had met who I had great conversations with. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. Sounds so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So the moment we've all been waiting for, tell us about the deck that you brought.
Yeah. So I brought a Mufasa deck, Ruby
Ooh.
Amber. I absolutely love this deck. It is a mid-range deck, and one of the things I really, really appreciated about it is that I feel like I have game against every matchup. I don't feel like there's one that's a really polarized matchup. I'd been playing a lot of Popsicle, and I just really hate the aggro matchup with that deck, and it felt like even if you tech for it by adding some more speed bumps, some 1 and 2 cost characters, or you try to ramp extra hard into your Be Prepared, either way, it doesn't feel great against aggro. And it was such a polarized matchup. I didn't feel great taking it. Mufasa, on the other hand, feels like against a slow deck like Popsicle, you can try to go really fast.
Right.
And against an aggro deck, you can try to control the board. In particular, I was playing Teeth and Ambitions in my list.
Yeah.
I really, really liked the play lines that afforded me. I was able to clear some smaller characters and set up Tremaine blowouts. Very, very helpful. Really, really fun. I love Teeth on Hydra. I love Teeth on Prince Eric. Love some of those plays that you can make with that list. But just super flexible. You can adapt your game plan to your matchup. And you have some really fun cards. Like, I love playing Rapunzel and Mother Gothel together. That's just super fun.
Yeah, she rocks. It's just like such a cool story-born moment in the game that just feels so rewarding, even when it's being played against you. Because we played many matches against each other, and I played against that deck a lot this last week. And that's one of those that I'm always like, that's cool, though. That's okay.
Yeah, and it's super satisfying, too, knowing when you can play a Gothel safely without playing a Rapunzel in the same turn. That's part of the skill in playing the deck, I think, is recognizing that your Gothel will live to the next turn to get Rapunzeled rather than having to have both of them in hand on the same turn. I just love those play patterns. Mufasa's a blast. I mean, come on, it's like being at a casino. Are you going to hit your Teeth and Ambitions, or are you going to hit your single Chernabog?
Yeah, he's awesome. That whole deck that you're playing, as soon as something comes out, you don't want to bounce it back to your hand as your opponent. Your opponent does not want to bounce it back to your hand, because everything that you have that pops out of your hand, or when it banishes, or when it whatever, does something amazing. And so it's so hard to defeat that deck, that deck that you're playing. Like Mufasa, you banish Mufasa, it's like, okay, but he could pop something else out and make it even worse for you, opponent. Like,
yeah, it's cool. It's sticky, right? Like, you don't want a Mother Knows Best your Rapunzels. That's what you're talking about, right?
Well, right,
like,
yeah, or the Tremaines.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
The real answers come in the form of Sapphire cards. Hades and Let It Go are the ones that are crippling for Mufasa decks, and I'll get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah, definitely. So recap your favorite game. There was one game that you got in the car after and you were like, that was the best game I've ever played. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So, briefly, round 1, I played against Sapphire Steel and felt like it was a pretty smooth matchup. I 2-0'd it. I felt really strong. I know my opponent said he was, making some tweaks to his deck, and he was super nice. Shout out to him. So that was a pretty smooth round. Then round 2, I sat down across from my opponent and we're just chit-chatting. I love to chat and ask people where they're from and, how their day is going and whatever. And my opponent casually brought up, he was like, oh yeah, I played Magic for a long time. I was on the Pro Tour. And I was like, oh.
It's so cool.
Oh no.
It's like a card celebrity you like stumbled upon, like, ooh.
Well, it's just somebody who at least is going to have that baseline skill level, right? Has an instinct for card games if you're playing at that level. So,
right. And no matter how that game turns out, it's going to be rewarding. Even if you're like, oh, I lost, but I lost to someone who's really good. Or if you win, you're like, oh, but I won. I beat him.
Yeah. It was a really, really fun match. He was a really kind opponent. I really enjoyed the way that he played. I mean, he was just very smooth in his inking, in his actions, in declaring what he was doing, marking his lore, et cetera, et cetera. You just can tell when somebody has a real feel for the game and what they're doing and has an experience level and is really comfortable with not just their deck and the game, but card games in general.
Sure.
So it was really enjoyable to try to, aspire to be on that level as well, right? And so we had a great series. It was my favorite series of the day. It might have been my favorite, like some of my favorite games of Lorcana that I've played. and it got me super jazzed for the game. The first game, I knew my game plan. He was playing Popsicle. I knew my game plan was to try to get out to an early lore lead as much as possible, take advantage of his slow tempo for the first 4 turns, and try to hit the mid-teens and then eke out that last bit of lore by having a body survive through Be Prepared, Medusa, Tremaine, etc.
Sure.
That game plan almost worked in the first game. I had a Surfer Mini that was gaining lore pretty steadily. It looked like she might solo it for me. I think she gained 8 or 10 lore that first game. And then I did stall out. It was the third Be Prepared that I couldn't quite recover from, and then he was able to have a couple of Gastons and a diamond and close out from behind. Game 2 went better for me. Kind of played the way that my deck wants to play, where I had the Gothel on 2 that I knew I could safely drop. I went into Mini Surfer on 3. My mulligan was exactly what I wanted. I even had a Mini Mouse on turn 1 that was just questing for 1 every turn for those first 4 turns, which makes a big difference. Landed the Rapunzel. That gave me the gas to get through. I had the clincher was that in that game, I had a Medusa on a Mufasa that then triggered into a Stitch Carefree Surfer that drew me 2 cards. So it was a big body. Actually, it might have been a Scar. Now that I think about it, it might not have been a Medusa. It might have been a Scar, and so he couldn't even clear the exerted Stitch Surfer with that with the 8 willpower. So
brutal.
Yeah. So like it was kind of in the bag, and then the clincher was Stitch off the top. That was a kind of a slam dunk win. Everything I wanted to do. By this point, as you may know, listeners, Popsicle plays real slow. That Ruby Sapphire deck takes a long time to win, right?
Yeah.
And I felt really strong in my play all day in terms of my speed. Like I felt like I was making quick decisions. And Mufasa, I don't think is necessarily a deck where you have long turns. You have to make sure that your turns are correct, but you aren't taking 8 or 9 actions in a turn like you are with Popsicle, where it's like, Tamatoa to get a Popsicle, to play a Popsicle, to play a Hiram, to banish a Popsicle, to draw 2 cards, to Fishbone Quill a card, to play, It's more like, cool, I'm going to play Gothel Rapunzel.
Right.
Or am I going to play Stitch Carefree Surfer or whatever, right? So by this point in the round, after the 2 games, it's 1-1, and there's under 5 minutes to play.
Whew.
And so, we kind of looked at each other. We're like, well, we'll see, like, I think I said, you ready to play some speed Kana here? And this is where the match got really, really cool, because we could have easily just taken it to a draw. I think like it would have been totally acceptable to just, play at a normal pace and say this is a draw, especially with the deck that he was on. And credit to him for not taking the time that he very well could have, because we played so fast. I mean,
wow.
And by this, we were the only table playing in the vicinity. And so we had, at least a dozen people kind of crowded around us. And I like,
go,
it was pretty
go.
cool. I heard people commenting, like, somebody was like, it's like speed chess over here. And I was like, oh,
right, no
cool.
kidding.
Yeah. So it felt like we were putting on like a little show where we were just playing super, super fast. And it came down to the wire. I was at that 16 or 17 lore point, and I had lethal on board. I could win the next turn. He had like 15 ink and a Tamatoa, but he was back on like 4 or 5 lore and didn't have a dime on the board yet.
Yeah.
And so, I'm basically sitting there just, I took there was the 4th turn. You basically have 5 turns after time is called. And so I had taken the 4th turn, I think. And it was just a question of whether or not he was going to be able to hit 20 from 4 or 5 with a dime and 2 Tamatoas.
Wow.
And, he's going through the moves, and he's going bit by bit here, and he's trying to get it so that he has enough items on board so that when he triggers the dime on Tamatoa, he can hit 20.
Right.
And he could only hit 19.
Oh.
And so I took it down, and that felt really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was such a good game. It was, as good as it gets, really. It felt really cool.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then, I had to jump right into my next round. It was Ruby Amethyst, which is a comfy matchup just because you know exactly how that's going to play out. Like,
Right.
it's just play patterns that we all know at this point. I feel really comfy in that with my Mufasas. I took that down 2-0. At that point, I could draw into the top cut by mathematically, I was told. And so yeah, played out a couple matches for fun, and like those went really well. I felt really strong against a couple of the decks I was playing against. Kicked it for a little while, relaxed, had the granola bar fueled
Nice.
up. Make sure you bring water to tournaments, y'all.
Yeah. Now you talk about playing against decks and you could predict what they were and you could predict the play patterns and you saw a lot of it coming. Now, based on the meta that you saw at this event, was there anything that surprised you? Was it just more of like what we've been seeing?
There wasn't a single deck that was surprising, but I will say that it was super, super diverse.
Nice. That's great news.
So the top 8 at this event was 8 completely different color combinations.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah.
You couldn't have planned it like that. That's great.
No, it was awesome. It was really, really cool to see. There was a mixture. There were Ursula Tempo decks. There were some of those Amethyst Steel aggro decks.
Mm-hmm.
There was some healthy Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire.
Yeah.
There was, and of course, Sapphire Steel.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately did take me down in the top 8. I probably made the mistake that was most obvious to me anyway in the first game of top 8 that could have cost me the game. It was really close. Having my Mufasa hit with Let It Go was really hard. And then I had another Mufasa trigger that flipped into a Minnie Mouse and a tiny Minnie Mouse. If it had been any 2-lore character, I believe I win that game as well. So a combination of mistakes and then having my Mufasa not kind of function the way I wanted it to, the way you hope for, cost me the first game. I can't complain too much about Mufasa hits though, because I did hit a Chernabog off of Mufasa in one of my games. I think the game was in hand, I think, and it didn't affect too much, but I still can't complain about hitting a mouse off of Mufasa having hit a Chernabog earlier.
That's awesome.
Second game, I won really handily. And then third game, my opponent won really handily. I mean, it was the draw that you hate to see. It was the hook into Smee, into Fishbone, into let's add a popsicle on top of it this turn, and into Hiram, spill your hand, whole new world, spill your hand. Yeah, it was pretty rough. I had maybe a chance, but got wiped by Tinkerbell. Grab your sword. So. It was pretty difficult to come back from that one. But, I had a good run of it. I would have loved to have seen anything that wasn't Sapphire in the top 8 because I feel like I had a good matchup spread otherwise. And some of my opponents that I had beaten earlier in the day made top 4. So I was like, drat.
Yeah. Dang.
But that's the way it shakes out sometimes. I have no regrets and my opponents played great. And so it was super fun. Super
That's great.
Fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A successful 2K. That's really fun.
Really successful day. I can't wait for the next one. It just felt good to get back in the swing of competitive card gaming. And I feel like I'll be even more prepared for the next one.
You'll be prepared.
Absolutely.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, what's up?
For $598,
Ooh.
Can you name all 7 dwarves?
$598 on the line. Oh my goodness. Okay, here I go.
You got this.
Doc.
Yep.
Obviously.
He is one.
He's in charge of this outfit.
He is in charge of this outfit, Hunty.
Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Bashful, Sleepy, Sneezy.
Yep.
And oregano.
And oregano. The lesser known dwarf.
Who am I missing?
They don't talk about him a lot. They really don't talk about this guy a lot because he's so
Happy.
happy.
Hey.
You win $598.
Sick.
I don't have that. But you win it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So, Katie,
Yes, Brett.
with my $598, I would like to purchase a feast for this evening, an entree, if you will, perhaps one that revolves around the feature film
Yes.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
You mean the movie that was going to make people blind?
What?
The movie that would make America blind?
What are you? I don't know. I know that you're referencing something cool, and guess what? I didn't know about Diz.
Oh, bet you didn't know about Diz. So my grandma, to take us back a little bit,
Okay.
my grandma was born in 1921, which makes her 16 when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out in 1937.
Swevin.
And the Seven Dwarfs. 1937, right? So movies are still like kind of new.
Mm-hmm.
She used to tell us all about how when the movie came out, everybody was scared that they were going to get like their eyes were going to get permanently crossed or they were going to go blind from it because it was so much animation and no one had like sat down to watch something that was that long and animated.
Right. They're watching over an hour of animation for the first time ever.
And it was in color.
Holy cow.
And it was one of the first full-length movies in color, too. So, like, sitting down for an hour and 20 minutes and watching something in full color, people were like, oh, it's going to burn your eyes. So, before we did this, bet you didn't know about this, I remembered my grandma saying that. And I was like, was that a weird grandma thing or is that real?
Right.
So, I looked it up, and it's real. They didn't necessarily say it was going to make you blind, but it was like, it'll have damaging effects on your sight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
You can't watch cartoons for that long. So even Walt Disney was like, oh, shoot, this might actually hurt people's eyes. Like, I don't want to be liable for this. So he's worried about this too, right? He's not sure if it's going to have bad effects on people's eyes. Like, he doesn't know.
Probably not good for business if you make a movie that blinds a bunch of people.
Right. And he needed good business. So Walt Disney is still pretty early on in the days of Diz here.
Yeah, tell me about like where in his journey is he? Where has he been?
Yeah, so he and his brother Roy started in a really small garage, his uncle's garage, right? And then they moved to the back of a real estate office, kind of like if you've ever seen Better Call Saul. And he's in the back of a like manicure pedicure place.
Sure. You have to walk through the pedicure place to get to the new Walt Disney studio. Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then they moved to a smaller studio on Hyperion Avenue in Los Angeles. That name may ring a bell. Hyperion Theater in Disneyland is named after that.
Oh, yeah.
Hyperion Movies, Hyperion Games, I think existed for a while too. The Hyperion sprinkled throughout Disney lore.
Little Easter egg.
Yeah, a little fun little Easter egg. So anyways, they needed to raise money to make a bigger studio, right? They had been making these small little comedies. Universal had been paying them to make these little comedies that starred this little girl, and it was all about like Alice in Wonderland, and it was half live action, half animated. So they were still, they were finding their footing, figuring out where they belonged in the world, and they needed Snow White to do well. So Walt Disney didn't want it to just be flat animation. So he made something that I think might be his greatest achievement ever.
For Snow White.
For Snow White.
And this is to hopefully preempt folks having eye damage from the movie.
From the animation craziness, blindness.
Can't watch those cartoons.
It'll get you. Don't go to the old movie house to watch Snow White. It'll poison your brain.
Kids these days.
Yeah, so he didn't want to test out this new technology, which I still haven't told you what it is yet. Didn't want to test it out on this feature film that had to do well. Right? So he made a short called The Old Mill in 1937. You can look it up. It's probably on Disney Plus. I say with a question mark because I'm not sure if it is. To try out the multiplane camera.
Okay, and what is the multiplane camera?
Cool is what it is. So you can see the multiplane camera, like a demonstration about it, in Hollywood Studios in that little like no Walt Disney little walkthrough, little Walt Disney Museum that's right by like the Little Mermaid attraction.
Yep.
Essentially what it is it's breaking up an animated image into different planes of view, right? So you've got something in the foreground, something in the background, and something right in the middle, right? Middle ground. So what the multiplane camera does is it's a bunch of different planes of glass that are stacked on top of each other, and a camera shoots through all the planes of glass. So if you're looking at an image, right, that's a barn with a moon in the background and some trees in the foreground. You could shoot a shot through the trees to the barn and have the moon look like it's in the background.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not animating the trees in the barn to like become bigger as you move towards them or something like that. You're physically zooming through glass panes by, sheets of animation to create that sense of depth.
Yeah. Practical special effects.
Wow.
It's very cool.
So, and he was hoping that the 3D effect would help people to not go blind because that's more how eyes are accustomed to see. Is that the thought?
Right. It's breaking it up, right, to make it look like it's a live action movie.
Gotcha.
And not just what I guess people are imagining, which is a bunch of flashing colors and I don't know, cartoons,
right,
and,
right.
upsetting images. I'm not sure. So it worked in the old mill. It worked in that short. People loved it. It blew their minds. They're like, Walt, you did another great job, Walt. Another bang up job.
So that was his proof of concept, and he said, "Okay,
Right.
now we can go and make Snow White."
Yeah, and he uses it a bunch in Snow White. If you go back and you watch Snow White, it's kind of hard for our modern eyes to tell because it just looks like a good movie. But it is separate, separate planes that he's shooting through, which is really cool.
It's pretty cool that if you watch Snow White and you think about it approaching the 100-year anniversary, we're not that far off from it.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's wild.
And really, it holds up. There's some beautiful animation in that movie.
It's a great movie. And speaking of practical effects, too, and beautiful animation, they use real makeup to animate, like, Snow White's cheeks. They use blush to animate her cheeks.
Wow. So they took blush and, like, painted it on the frames, the animation?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And Snow White did really well. Snow White made a lot of money in ticket sales, but it also made a lot of money in terms of like how much merchandise they were able to sell, which may be the beginning of Disney getting addicted to merchandise. Who knows? But it was something that they could really market, I guess, in positive ways too, because they gave them the $4.5 million they needed for their bigger studio.
And where was that?
In Burbank, California. You can go to the studio in Burbank, California. I have been lucky enough to go when I worked at Disneyland. I was able to go in. And I went many times. I went times when I didn't need to go.
Nice.
I went to get my flu shot there just because you could. They sent out this big company email. They were like, "Go, you, everybody can get their flu shot." And there were like locations, obviously at Disneyland where I worked, or you could go to the studios and get it. So I did, just because I could.
Of course, you have to. That's so neat
Oh,
because
it's
they're
the
still
coolest.
there. That's still where Disney Studios is.
In the big lot in Burbank. I mean, I think it's definitely grown since they were there. But when you go there, you can see there's like a little trailer set up that is the old studio where they animated Snow White. Like it's like a chunk of it. They like plopped up and sat right in the studio.
Nice.
And that's where I went inside to get my flu shot. Thank you very much.
That's your claim to fame, really.
Yep. Yeah, it's really cool. And delving back into like the world of Snow White is so much fun because it's the OG, it's the first one. So it's like, it's just really special to look at all that stuff and to think of Walt Disney as the artist behind all of it.
Yeah.
Is really cool too.
So, he really was the driving force behind it, right? Did he write the movie? Did he what?
Yeah, so when you delve into this research and you go to look up who directed this movie, there's there are 6 different people credited for directing it. But when you look at the credits, they're directing animators. So they like animated certain characters or certain sequences or whatever. So Walt Disney isn't credited at all for Snow White. But if you have ever watched bonus features on a Disney DVD, which I know many of us have, You will see in the Snow White bonus features many, many, many videos of Walt Disney acting out Snow White. So he like directed it.
Sure.
You know, anything you hear about Walt Disney too from those days, like he was a big force in the artistic end of the movies and, you know, really creative because he's an animator, which people forget about too. He's an artist.
Right. He's more than just the figurehead, right?
Yeah.
He invented this new technology for this movie that single-handedly allowed them to build this $4.5 million studio where Disney's still located today. Like,
yeah, this all exists not because of Mickey Mouse, which I think kind of like is like the thing now where people are like, oh, it all started because of a mouse. But like Walt Disney drew the mouse. You know, like, he's just an artist. At the end of the day, he's like an animator who was really good at it and made good movies, and then it just kept on going.
And he had the vision to say this could be more than a 3-minute thing that flashes but for a longer movie.
Right.
It's something that can be an entire cinematic art form in and of itself. And that's what Snow White was, it seems.
Yeah, it gave it substance. We won little tiny Seven Dwarf Academy Awards for it, too. They made little specialty tiny Academy Awards, like little dwarfs.
So what was the award for? The Seven Dwarfs Award for?
So he won the little tiny awards for, I believe it's like achievement in animated feature film.
Mm-hmm.
And Shirley Temple presented those to him because she's tiny, like the dwarves are tiny. And Walt Disney is quoted saying later that he didn't like that because it also didn't feel like they were like treating it like it was something legitimate, right? It was like, oh, have the baby give you baby Oscars for your baby thing. Like, what?
Uh-huh.
But the multiplane camera that he used for this, right, and that he used for the old mill, won an Academy Award for scientific and engineering achievement.
Very cool.
It's so cool. Like, I didn't know that was an Academy Award. Maybe it isn't anymore, but it was really cool.
Very cool. I mean, it took decades and decades and decades for an animated feature to be nominated for Best Picture, right?
Oh, yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
In 1991, yeah.
So, you know, right from the start, it wasn't really getting maybe the respect it deserved, but the technology behind it that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, you know, that's a lot of things that Walt Disney tried to do. And, you know, Disneyland famously didn't work on its first day. And, you know, you gotta start somewhere. You gotta remember that it all started with a Walt Disney.
Yeah, you have to give him his proper shrift, yo.
Yeah, man. Another fun fact that I came across when researching Snow White for a little bit today. Walt Disney is not credited, right, as the director or the producer. We went over that. The person who voices the prince is also not credited.
Oh no!
Like he's just not in the credits.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Do we not know who it was? Is it lost to history?
No, it's not lost to time. He exists. It's just they just didn't put him in the credits. It's 1937. Like I don't know. They're like it's a movie. We made it. These guys were in it. Yeah, we'll put Joe's name on it and so. Who else drew this? Oh, yeah, that guy. Sure, send it in. Like, they don't know. It doesn't matter. Walt Disney isn't even listed as the producer. Like, what? Can you imagine that ever happening for a movie now?
No,
that's impossible. But it was just like, we'll put this in theaters and people will give us some cash for it and then we'll buy a bigger studio. Like, okay, I guess you can. But the prince, not credited.
Who is the unlucky man?
I don't know. I looked it up and I still can't remember his name.
And that's irony, folks.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me
and
see.
The prince has a name too, right?
The prince does have a name. I'll give any Disney nerds out there a moment to think about what the prince's name is. Do you know what his name is, Brett?
Like Fortescue or something like that.
You're close with Fortescue.
Right? Like
honestly.
Yeah, it's like something.
It's a fancy name.
I don't know.
It's like sounds like fancy. Prince Florian.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Very ostentatious.
Would you like to know the name of the person who voices the prince?
Yeah, let's give him his due respect.
Let's tell America what his name is.
America, the man who voiced the Prince Florian in Snow White in 1937 was
Harry Stockwell. You know, Harry Stockwell.
Classic. Oh yeah, that famous voice actor, Harry Stockwell.
I mean, he's got a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah.
He
nails it.
I can't be upset about that. He's great.
Good job, Harry Stockwell.
Good job, Harry Stockwell, and good job, Walt Disney. It felt right to pour one out pour one out to the OG, especially when there's such cool Seven Dwarfs cards in Lorcana.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll talk about some of those Seven Dwarf cards in our dessert segment.
Ooh, delicious. All right, what's for dessert today?
Well, we have something that I think is going to synergize quite well with the Snow White entree that we were just served.
Ooh, are we having synergy for dessert?
We're going to have some synergy for dessert.
It makes me think of, remember when I had Reese's for breakfast?
Yeah.
I had synergy for breakfast.
It sounds like a sports drink got made into a cereal.
Oh, it sounds gross. Synergy as a food sounds gross. Yeah, synergy. I mean, synergy kind of is like a sports drink.
Yeah.
In a way, it helps with your game performance.
Synergy and performance. Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Smash some synergy into your deck.
We've stretched our food similes and metaphors really, really far already on this show.
Yes.
And we're only going to keep pushing on those boundaries by comparing our dessert course to some Gatorade.
The limit does not exist. So tell us about synergy, Brett. What is synergy? Take us there first.
Yeah. So briefly, we did a deck building episode a few episodes ago. And that turned out to be really popular, it seemed. It seemed like that got a lot of traction. I don't know. Lots of folks gave that one a listen.
Yep.
And that was about the very basics of deck building. I mean, just like bare bones principles of how you might construct a deck based on some ratios. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take it one step further today, something a little bit more, I don't know, advanced, I guess. And that is synergy in deck building.
Yeah.
And that is because it's something that we often seek first when we're building a deck. So for example, you might have a broom deck or want to build a song deck and cards that synergize with singing songs. You might want to have a deck that revolves around healing or playing the Pride Lands with princes. Challenging proactively for a benefit with like Sumerian Talisman and the Queen of Hearts, right? All of these different things that very obviously pair together. They're designed to work together. However, synergy can be a trap when it comes at the expense of efficiency.
Huh.
And this is what we're going to kind of come back to here, synergy versus efficiency. Let's look at an example. The Minnie Mouse Funky Spelunker card from Into the Inklands. It's a 1-cost 0/3. At a location, she gets +2 strength. So she synergizes, immediately with locations. If you're building a deck that uses a bunch of locations, you'd be like, oh, she works really, really well in here because her ability will give her a boost when there are locations in your deck. Makes sense, right? But on the other hand, when you consider that you'd ultimately be paying, like let's say you have to move her to a location for 1 ink, right? It costs 1 to move her. That means you're paying 2 for a 2/3, which is the same thing that you could get from playing Minnie Mouse Princess.
Sure.
Right? So it's a slight advantage maybe in that you get to split the cost over a couple of turns, but overall, you're not getting any real benefit by taking advantage of her location-based synergy. I think this is a really easy example to look at first, where you can see really clearly that the synergy that she offers doesn't make up for the loss in efficiency of starting your first turn with a 0/3 instead of a 1/3 that you could have with many other cards. Yeah?
Yeah, she doesn't often make it into decks. You don't often see her in any decks.
And that makes a lot of sense. She's an example of synergy not making up for a lack of efficiency. So a slightly more difficult problem now to consider would be Jim Hawkins. Let's look at him. He also synergizes with locations, yeah. 5 cost, 4/4 quest for 2. Now, that's fine for stat line, because the most efficient character that costs 5 might be something like Cerberus, who's a 5-cost, 5/6, 1 with no ability, right? That's a very efficient stat line. You get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of stats. Now, with Jim Hawkins, though, you get the synergistic payoff of being able to put a location into play that could cost up to 4. So the hit in efficiency that you take from playing the card could be bolstered by his synergistic impact. So when building decks early on in your deck building career, a player often is going to construct a really synergistic deck and then find it's not working. It's really easy to make a synergistic deck because you can look at things like traits, like the names are of the magic brooms. Cool, they're all magic brooms, they go in a deck. This card says it's going to boost all my magic brooms. Great, that goes in the deck, right? And then it's a little bit deceptive because those same players will then think that they have a really synergistic deck and that should work, but it's so inefficient that it doesn't lead to winning games.
Right. It might feel like everything fits into a nice little category, and so the puzzle pieces should fit together, but they might not necessarily perform as well as you want them to.
Exactly. It's just a really common thing, a pitfall that a newer deck builder could fall into, right?
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. I mean, it's daunting when you're starting to build decks and especially if you don't have that many people to play against, if you're maybe just at home and you're looking for, local games, that can be really intimidating.
And the designers are shepherding you in a certain way. And part of the reason that these cards are in the game at all is to help you start to deck build. Like last time we made a Titans list, right? And part of the reason that I wanted to start with a Titans list is because it is synergistic. It is easy to see some of those connections that the deck is encouraging you to make. And that's done on purpose. The designers put those in the game so that you can build a deck yourself and it can feel reasonably cohesive right away.
Right. That's nice. That makes sense.
But as you're looking to develop your skills and as you're looking to make better and better decks, you're going to start to realize where some of those shortfalls in efficiency come into play. So let's look at the 7 dwarfs.
Oh, that's definitely when I'm thinking about Lorcana and I'm thinking about Synergy. That's one of the big ones. I would say 7 dwarves and the brooms are the two kinds of pieces that make the most sense to me in my brain, where I go, oh, I got all these dwarves. Oh, I got all the dwarves. Oh, I got all the Snow Whites. Oh, I want to put it all together now.
Yeah, these are often referred to as tribal decks. If you hear that lingo, a tribal deck means that you're slamming a bunch of cards together that are all part of the same quote unquote tribe. So you might have an angel deck or a dwarf deck or an elf deck or a beast deck, whatever it is. Those are tribal decks.
So, Chef, we've got all the ingredients laid out. It kind of feels like we're at a live hibachi right now, and you're going to put all this stuff on the stove and tell us how it's working.
Yeah. So let's look at some of these 7 dwarf cards, right? Like, let's take our first little ingredient. Let's look at a card like Dopey. Dopey is a 3-cost 2/2, quests for 1. When he's banished, he gives +2 strength to your 7 dwarf characters until your next turn. So look at his stat line. We know right away this is an inefficient stat line. We can pay 1 for a 2/2 that quests for 1, but he costs 3.
Right.
So you're paying 2 more for the effect he's having. And when you consider that 2 strength aura that only applies to your 7 dwarf characters, and only when he's banished, which you're not going to always be able to control, it doesn't seem like that is going to be worth the extra 2 ink that you have to play.
Right.
Grumpy is a similar card. Grumpy is a 4-cost 3/4/1, so he costs 1 extra this time, and he gives an extra strength to your 7 dwarf cards.
Yes.
Now, these cards synergize really well with 7 dwarfs. It seems like they all work together.
Yeah, because all of their abilities say that you need other dwarfs, so your brain goes, well, they'll be great once I have all the dwarves together.
Right. But their power level relies on other cards. And this is one of the downfalls of synergistic cards, is that if they don't do enough when they are alone, then they lose a lot of power. So paying 3 for a 2/2/1 or paying 4 for a 3/4/1, those are not good value propositions. And the synergistic effects do not make up for their lack of efficiency.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Are there any of these cards from like the dwarf area that you think maybe would succeed in other decks, or are they all completely dependent on each other?
Well, Dock, I think, is an example of a card that is very efficient and does not depend on any other cards. And that's why you do see Dock in Amber lists from time to time, right? Like I was playing 4 Dock in my Mufasa list last weekend.
Right.
He is a great card. And if he had said when he quests, you can pay 1 less for a 7 dwarf character, he'd be much less powerful. Right. And he wouldn't see any play in any other decks. So he's an example of a card that is strong in his own right and doesn't need a synergistic effect to be powerful.
And I would say, of all the 7 dwarves, Doc is probably the one that could succeed on his own. The best out of all of them, you know?
Yeah,
He's the leader of the group. He's the big adult. He's running this. He's in charge of this outfit, honey.
He's in charge of this outfit.
Mm-hmm.
So, as another quick example, like I look at Bashful, he's the one he's a 4 cost, 2/5 quest for 3, but he can't quest at all if you don't have another 7 dwarf character in play, right? So in that case, it's forcing you to rely on synergistic effects to have any kind of efficiency, because without those synergies, he's absolutely like pretty useless.
Right.
So overall, these synergies don't compensate for the lacks in efficiency.
Wow. Yeah. That's too bad. That's too bad to hear because it's so cool.
It is. But, here's the thing. If you're building a 7 dwarf deck, and you should build a 7 dwarf deck because it's fun, and building decks is not only about efficiency, it's about having fun. And synergy is really, really fun.
Yeah.
You can find ways to flesh out your synergistic builds with more efficient cards. Right? So if you're set on building your 7 dwarf deck and you're like, how do I make this better? Look for ways to make your list more efficient because the rest of your list is so synergistic. As an example, when I was kind of doodling out a 7 dwarfs list before this podcast in preparation for recording, I included amethyst cards with my 7 dwarves because I wanted to use some standalone cards that are always good, including Friends on the Other Side, Rafiki.
Love Rafiki.
Yzma.
Oh, she's
for
great
some
too.
removal, which is something that Amber lacks, right? So in these cases, I'm offering things, efficient standalone cards that the dwarves don't otherwise offer. So Friends on the Other Side, plenty of card draw, really great to make sure that I have multiple dwarfs in hand and on the board, yeah? Rafiki is a great 1-drop. There are no 1-drop dwarves. We need to fill out our curve. Let's try to protect some of our dwarves proactively by clearing opposing threats, yeah? Yzma gives us that removal and card draw in a pinch. She's multifaceted. She does a lot of things that Amber doesn't otherwise do.
Right. And while synergies are really rewarding, I guess, in like a story way, right? Like in enjoying how the characters all playing with each other. The fun of Lorcana is having like Yzma out there with Dopey and Grumpy. Like that's that's like the charm of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I can't remember how many times this weekend it was like, yeah, my Simba eats your Minnie Mouse.
Yeah, right. It's like, what? Or when you have characters sing songs they would never sing. It's like amazing. Minnie Mouse singing Friends on the Other Side.
Or
it's like, what?
Characters that can't speak singing songs.
Right, yeah.
It's really, really fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So yeah, some examples of combinations that are both efficient and synergistic though, because this isn't to say that synergy is always a bad thing. I mean, you want to seek out synergy for sure. It's just that you want to be wary of sacrificing too much efficiency in the name of synergy.
Sure.
So when you get both, that's when you get power spikes. Cards that are efficient and synergistic. Examples including Mother Gothel and Rapunzel.
Ooh.
Very synergistic.
Yes.
Very thematic. And really good by themselves. You could play Mother Gothel in a list with popsicles.
Yep.
Theoretically, and she's at worst, she's an inkable 3/1 that does something, right? It's just that you get a huge power spike when you're able to heal her.
Yes.
Rapunzel is a wonderful card who can do things that no other card does, right? Heal and draw at the same time. but you get a big power spike when you're able to damage your own characters and provide that on-demand source of card draw for Rapunzel.
Right.
Similarly, Fishbone Quill and Whole New World, right? That's a classic combination that we've seen for 3 sets now. Draw a ton of cards, throw them all in your inkwell. Maybe Bucky and Prince John, right?
Oh,
Those
yeah.
synergize really well.
Yeah.
Cool. I play a Floodborn, I discard a card and I draw a card.
Right.
Right? It's synergizes really well and it's effective.
Yeah, and those synergies, you know it's a good and efficient synergy when you pull it off and you're like, wow, yeah. Like, it just makes everything make sense. You
Yeah.
feel really accomplished and you're like, oh, it's all coming together. It feels like the engine's churning and things are going the right way.
Yeah. I mean, for an example, when I'm playing Mufasa, I always will keep Gothel and Rapunzel, no matter the matchup. Like that's the best thing I can have in my hand at the start of the game, is knowing that I will be able to pull off a Gothel into a Rapunzel at some point. Make sure that I can be playing to the board every turn and know that I have that refill when I need it.
Yeah, it's sick. It's awesome. And would you say that is your number one favorite synergy?
I think so. I think right now in Lorcana, that probably is my favorite synergy for the theming, the tie to Tangled, the and the power spike that it gives you. It's my favorite, I'd say.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite too. I can't think of anyone that's better. I mean, every time it comes up, we go like, oh, wow, how cool.
The simplicity, the elegance of Captain Hook into Smee on turns 1 and 2.
Ooh, that is fun.
Is really fun and synergistic and efficient. So, you know, when you're looking at some of your favorite combinations, just consider, is whatever you're sacrificing in terms of not playing a vanilla character worth the synergistic effect?
Yeah, definitely.
That's synergy and deck building.
There it is. That was a delicious dessert.
Great. I think let's grab a mint on the way out the door.
Ooh, let's do it.
Are these, can I grab one of these? Are these free or?
Oh, why, yes, sir. You can grab a mint if you want, but...
Who is that? What's your name?
My name is Helga.
Helga, what kind of mints are these?
They're, let me see. And let me taste one and see what it is. This tastes like a yellow song. All right, then. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, Helga. Wow, okay.
Who was that?
It is Helga. I guess she's a German sort of.
Oh, was she German? I don't know.
I'm not really sure what Helga was.
She's great.
Yeah, I love her. Whoever she is, she's wonderful.
She said the mint tasted like a yellow song?
Yeah.
Did she mean amber by any chance?
I think that's what she was referring to.
I don't think she plays Lorcana.
I don't know. I'm looking at this wonderful little minty delight here, though.
Oh wow! Oh, look at
this amber card.
That is a rare minty delight if ever I've seen
It
one.
is a rare. I would say it cost maybe like 4-ish units of cost.
Tell us about this dream card that you cooked up, Brett.
Yeah. Enough dilly-dallying.
Helga left the room. We can talk about it now.
It's a 4-cost inkable song called, fittingly for this episode,
Hi-ho.
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 It is an action. It is a song, which means that, a character of 4 or more can exert and sing it for free. And it says, your 7 dwarfs characters get +2 lore this turn.
Boom. Want to talk about synergy?
Yeah. This is a payoff. This is something that you can build towards. This gives you a reason to play those 7 dwarf decks.
Yes.
It might actually make them able to steal a few games, right? I mean, because you can sing it, you could conceivably play 2 of them kind of early in the game, give 3 dwarves +4 lore, and that's kind of Jafar Whole New World level combo right there.
Honestly, yeah.
So potentially a payoff card for the 7 dwarfs that makes them able to get over the line quickly.
I love this card. I think it looks beautiful. The picture that you chose is gorgeous. Like, I think it works so well. I think that it fills a gap in the game right now. We don't have any Snow White songs.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
I would love to play this card. I want this one to exist. I mean, I guess that's why I made it. But
that's the problem with these dream cards is that sometimes we think about them so much, and then when we go to build a deck, I'm like, oh, we should put Hi-Ho in there, but it doesn't actually exist.
It has some fitting flavor text too.
Ooh, tell us what the flavor text says.
It ain't no trick to get rich quick if you dig with a shovel or a pick.
In a mine. It doesn't say the mine part. Yeah, it ain't no trick to get rich quick. I mean, you're getting rich on lore.
Yeah. And this effect has been in other games, right? It's just kind of that like bloodlust finisher kind of card.
Yeah.
You compare it to something like, even in this game, 99 Puppies, which costs one more, isn't a song, and only gives one extra lore upon a character questing, right? So this, by forcing you to build synergistically towards the Seven Dwarfs, you get the payoff of being able to potentially play multiples of it pretty easily, and being doubled the impact for each time you play it.
Yeah, definitely.
A potential cap for the Seven Dwarfs.
Beautiful.
I love making these dream cards.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It's one of my favorite things. I look forward to it every episode.
Yeah, me too. I love it so much. I wish there was a world where we could print these.
Well, you can. There are services that will print your proxies
I
and
guess
stuff.
that's true.
It's just that, it's the kind of thing where like, we only have so much time to play the game. And so I always want to play it, like feel like I'm playing towards something, right? Like our play time is working towards getting better at the game and exploring the existing metagame to whatever depths we possibly can.
Sure.
So it's hard to rationalize like putting in fake cards.
Yeah, no, that's true. And also, I mean, that kind of goes with what I was saying, that you don't want to trick your brain into thinking that these are real playable cards and then get used to using them. But boy, it's real fun.
It's super fun. I highly recommend everybody give it a shot sometime. Helga, are you?
Yes.
Do you have a menu of what you might be offering in the future?
Oh yes, I have a menu. Menu.
Could I take a look at that?
Yes, let me go get it. Sir,
Yeah.
here's the menu.
Oh.
It looks kind of sticky.
All right. Let me
I
take
apologize
Can I take
for
a look?
the restaurant.
That's okay.
For how sticky it is.
That's okay. I mean, I've definitely had a sticky menu before. It won't be.
My sincerest. Would you like another mint? I'm so sorry.
It's all right, Helga. I'll just take a look at this menu. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, so let's take a look. What have we got coming up here?
Ooh, I know why it's sticky.
Why? I don't. Do tell.
Well, next time we're going to talk a little bit about some new snacks
Oh.
that are in some of the Disney parks.
Ooh.
There's some s'mores sticky snacks. I call them sticky because s'mores are usually sticky.
Gotcha. I didn't know where Helga was going with why these menus were so sticky, but it's because the s'mores made them sticky. All the new s'more products that are apparently at Disney World.
I mean, there are so many that have been popping up in our feeds.
So we're going to talk about all the new s'mores at Disney World next time.
Yeah, we'll do a little snack deep dive.
Also going to talk about tempo.
Ooh.
This is something that comes up quite a bit, and it's a little bit nebulous in terms of its definition. So we're going to try to nail down what tempo is in Lorcana.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, just like Synergy was, it's really fun to talk about these keywords.
Yeah, these concepts that, especially if you're a new TCG player, you might not have a great grasp on yet.
And even if you aren't a new player, it's really nice to look at those through the Lorcana lens and through the lens of this exact meta that we're in, too.
Totally. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a subscribe, share our podcast,
Yes.
give us some feedback.
Yes, please.
You can follow us on social media.
Oh, anywhere on social media. Find us anywhere.
At Smorkana on Instagram,
Facebook,
YouTube,
Twitter.
all of those fun places. Smorkana@gmail.com, at Smorkana on Twitter, everywhere.
Yeah,
At
send
Smorkana.
us a message, write a comment, tell us what you're liking, what you want to see. All we want is your feedback. All we want is to talk to you and chat more about Lorcana.
Until next time, keep on snacking, y'all.
Keep on snacking.
Nom 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 nom.